Hello, you are listening to the Trifecta, where UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids collide, the official podcast of Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. I'm your host, Katie Paige, and this is our Halloween special, our first Halloween special, and I'm excited for our guest tonight. We have none other than Heather Moser, Heather, did I say Heather Moser? Heather Moser, a good friend from Small Town Monsters. I hope that everybody out there tonight is having a good week so far and that you have more wonder than worry. It's a crazy world out there, and I hope you're all doing well and hanging in there. So, just a couple quick reminders before we bring Heather on. If you guys have any questions for Heather, please write your questions in all uppercase so we know that they're questions. And also, don't forget to help support Rocky Mountain Ranch Research and check out our new Patreon page at RMRR. Patreon, RMRR. Also, you can go to Rocky Mountain Ranch Research and get some early Christmas shopping done, have cool mugs, and my favorite glass. These are like high quality glass. This is one of my favorite glasses to use. So if you want to find a fun way to support what we do here, you can always go to Rocky Mountain Ranch Research and check out our store. We have cool hoodies and t-shirts and hats as well. So I would really appreciate that if you check that on out. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Heather onto the show. How you doing, Heather?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Heather comes to us from Ohio.
Yes.
Yes.
A dark and stormy night is happening right now.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. And, this is the Halloween special. So before we get into all things UFOs, paranormal, and cryptids and small town monster, I just is Halloween one of your favorite holidays? I know it is for me.
Yeah, it's absolutely my favorite holiday, bar none. And I often see Halloween is more like a state of mind year round, and then you get to amp it up around this time of year. So I'm just always like in my element during the fall when we're getting close to trick or treat time and watching a lot of spooky movies and things like that, and getting ready for trick or treat here soon. So
I miss those days. I raised 5 kiddos, so Halloween was always a big deal in our household as well. But now I moved up kind of to a rural area. In the last 3 years, we haven't had one single trick-or-treater. I always buy a bag of candy in hopes there's going to be one. But those are such fun times for the kids and everything. And you're right, it is a state of mind. And it's always like, hi there, glad you're here. But it's always fun to anytime is a good evening, Wizardly. It's good to have like boots and sweaters. I mean, like that fall, anytime I can get the boots out and the sweaters. So you're right. It is definitely a state of mind. Heather, what are some of your favorite Halloween movies? Because I want to watch a few this Halloween night since we don't have trick-or-treaters at the door.
Well, what we did recently within the last few weeks is we watched all of the Conjuring movies. We watched them backwards. I have seen all of them up through I hadn't seen the 4th one, but my daughters had not seen all of them yet. But I didn't wait to watch the 4th one. So we watched the 4th one first and then worked our way backwards. So for about 4 nights in a row there, we had a Conjuring movie every night. But there's that. Last night we watched the Scream movie because girls had not seen the original Scream. Yeah. So anything like that. It's 13 Ghosts with Matt Lillard is one of my favorites. I'll watch that any time of year, though. It doesn't have to be Halloween.
What is that one called?
13 Ghosts.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. Okay.
It's from like early 2000s. It's a remake from something much older, but Matt Lillard is one of the main actors and I really enjoy him. So that, and of course Nightmare on Elm Street. It can't get better than that one. But that's, I don't know. We watched something else. My daughter had heard something about a movie called Lights Out, which I had not heard of. And we watched it and it was pretty creepy. So
I'm definitely going
to check out that world out there.
Yeah, there's so many good ones,
Yeah.
and I tend to like more of the psychological thrillers or ones that sometimes truth is scarier than fiction. So a lot of those choppy up like I tend to go
Yeah.
towards the psychological thrillers because you're like the Conjuring series. That's what's so
Yeah.
scary about it, you know? And that kind of leads us
Mhm.
perfectly into small town monsters and the work that you do with small town monsters. But before we get into that, how did you personally get started in this kind of cryptid UFO paranormal world, and which lane did you kind of start off with?
Well, paranormal is where I started originally. And it all really started whenever I was very, very young, watching unsolved mysteries on TV. Caught my attention. Not the true crime part of it, because that was just truly terrifying. But
Yeah.
any ghost stories on there, cryptids or anything like that had caught my attention. And so growing up with unsolved mysteries, growing up hearing stories about the house that my mom lived in as a child being haunted. Um, I don't know, there was something about ghosts that just always got my attention. Um, it's hard, like where I live, Bigfoot was part of the discussion um, since I was young, and it wasn't like a does it or doesn't exist kind of thing. It was just that's a thing that's out there. Bigfoot exists. It's out there.
Mhm.
So I kind of grew up with that being in the back of my mind as an interest as well. But I just really the paranormal stuff is what really got me into this world, and I I stuck with it even through high school and into college, and I ended up with Small Town Monsters because Seth started Small Town Monsters, and his first documentary was Minerva Monster,
Oh.
which um, is a case from 1978 in a little town not far from where I grew up. So immediately, I mean, I live in a small town, grew up in a small town, I still live in the middle of nowhere, but um, that kind of thing doesn't go under the radar when a small community gets a documentary made about some of their activities. So I started to pay attention to what Small Town Monsters was doing and reached out to Seth and told him that I appreciated his work, and I followed along for a few more years, and then eventually said, "Hey, if you're in need of a researcher," I was looking into Bell Witch stuff, and he had announced that that was something they were going to be putting on the table relatively soon. And I said, "Hey, if you need a researcher, especially for Bell Witch, I'll love diving into stuff." And um, I kind of already have some of that under my belt with the Bell Witch specifically. So he was like, "Yeah, actually, let's bring it on and see what we can do." And that was the very beginning. That was 2019, I think, when I first came on, and I've been there ever since. And my role has grown exponentially since then, and it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
It
crew.
look at that team. There's the crew for Small Town Monsters.
Yeah,
Take us
we have
back
a
to that
couple more
first
now,
case.
but
Yeah. Take us back to that first case from your hometown or close to your hometown town in Ohio. What was that called? And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I don't know anything about that. Cryptid.
so the Minerva Monster case, it's a Bigfoot story from 1978. The Kate family, they still live off of Route 30, old Route 30, heading into Minerva. They had had some experiences with a Bigfoot-like creature, kind of like harassing their home. They would see there's like if I'm remembering correctly, like a strip mine up behind where they live, up in the woods a little bit, and a pond and things. And um, they started to have activity, and they ended up calling the police because it had gotten to a point that it was a little much.
Yeah.
And of course, once the police got involved, and then the newspapers got wind of it, then it became almost circus-like as far as people showing up from all over the place wanting to hunt the thing down and parking along the road and in the yard and everything else, just trying to get a glimpse of this creature. And they kind of, from what I understand, um, kind of got teased a good bit in the community for even coming forward with this. But years later, when Seth decided to retell this story and kind of put it in documentary format and went and spoke with some of the remaining members of the family, I think that that had sort of a redemption type quality for them, because once it was out there in that format all these years later, it's become more accepted. They're not questioned as much. They're certainly not mocked. They were. So I think it was a good thing, not only to preserve the story, but to have some closure and healing for the family as well. But yeah, they had they saw the creature. There's stories of them at one point seeing them, like the family being paralleled out of the like the path from the woods back to the house, paralleled out with like big black cats, like panther type creatures.
Interesting. You
Yeah,
said this was
they
in 1978, Heather?
1978, yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. And so, did they see any UFOs or orbs in connection with these sightings? I'm asking you that because, of course, Rocky Mountain Ranch in 1978, we had these, cryptid Sasquatch. They called them white fuzzies, but they would
Mhm,
bang and menace on the house, and it sounds like, and police
mhm.
were called, very similar. But it seems
Yeah.
like the 70s, especially 75 through, 78, 79. What's with the
Mhm.
Bigfoot, like, throwing, hitting the houses and stuff? Because I hear this in the
Yeah.
70s. Were there any
Yeah,
UFOs
there
to 'em?
actually, this was something Seth told me fairly recently, that which I don't think he was aware of it until recently, but it turns out there was actually a UFO encounter right across the road. Like the neighbors had that around the same time or immediately preceding it or something like that. It was in the same time frame. But that was not as widely known, of course. I mean, like I said, Seth didn't even know about it till recently, but yes, apparently there was UFO activity around the same time.
That's interesting. And with all the years you've done and all these projects that you've done with small town monsters, and you've done a few. I'm gonna throw up a few pictures of you hard at work here with your crew. But look at you guys. So you've done a lot of stories, a lot of movies. Do you notice that I mean, what is your opinion on, UFOs and cryptids and paranormal? Do you think they almost always intersect or sometimes intersect? Or what are your thoughts on that, Heather?
I mean, I
Whoops.
between three. And I think that it would be a huge disservice for us to continue being isolated in our modes of thinking. There's so many things that overlap and intertwine, but we also, as humans, try to like segregate ourselves and form these little tribes. And, I keep my information and you keep your information. We don't necessarily share. But for the people that are willing to break down those barriers and start talking to one another, it turns out that there are a lot of similarities. There is a lot of overlap. And I think there's something to be learned from that for every community, once we do that. But I mean, it's very difficult to deny when you start looking into all of these stories and these sightings. When people have encounters, there's always it's always pretty common for someone to have and I'm talking more than just like a roadside crossing of a Bigfoot or something, but if they're, a close encounter of some sort of creature, cryptid, Bigfoot, dogman, whatever, very rarely is that the only instance that something odd happens to them. It seems that weirdness follows certain people. And I know for people that are very skeptical about this entire genre of thinking, I guess, that might seem a little far-fetched, but in my experience, when, it kind of opens you in a way. It's like, I don't know if you kind of get a glimpse into another side and then it's easier to see it, or if it's become predisposed somehow, or maybe you were born that way. I don't know, but it's definitely something where people tend to have multiple experiences once they've had something major happen to them. Or even looking back, things that they may have shrugged off now have a different type of clarity to them. But yeah, I think they are all intertwined in some way, somehow. I don't know what that is, but I feel like we're not going to fully understand that for a good while, and until we're all willing to actually share information and kind of take each other more seriously.
Yeah.
Um, because even in our own communities, like speaking of, the UFO community, paranormal community, cryptid community, even within those communities, we're so fragmented and rigid in some of our thinking that we don't even we don't even work with people within our own little subfield, let alone open it up to a wider field. So I don't
I
know. I
agree.
think until when we get to that, then maybe we'll have some more answers. But I don't know.
I agree with you. And I've noticed that through the years. I can remember even in like 2012, 2013, trying to break down the MUFON barriers when I was involved with MUFON and trying to go, it's not all nuts and bolts. You had to break down a lot of doors with them because then you had to open them up to the whole, kind of woo-woo side of things, as some people like to call
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But then you
Yeah.
had the Bigfoot and the cryptids. And even when I first started out, I was not going to go chasing cryptids. And I didn't even know if I
Right.
believed in Bigfoot. Now, being small town monsters is small town monsters. You guys really have
Yeah.
a heavy focus on the cryptids, don't you? For the most part, I think a lot of your shows are kind of Bigfoot oriented. What are some of your favorite cryptid cases in general that you've covered?
Well, probably forever going to be consider it my baby in a way, is when we covered Rougarou. It was one of the first projects that I got to be heavily involved in. And it was just really, I don't know, really fascinating to watch through research all of these cultures start to meld together and different pieces from all over the world kind of combine to create what a Rougarou is or could
Yeah,
be
what is a
today.
Rougarou? I have not heard of a
It's
Rougarou.
so Rougarou, I wish I could say it with the Cajun accent because it sounds a lot cooler when they say it. But it's like
Rougarou.
about yeah, it's like a dog man werewolf thing. And I don't really split hairs often between dogman and werewolf because I feel like they're interchangeable these days, even though
Yeah.
I understand the root of them is different. But it's like a dogman type creature. It's a shapeshifter in a way because technically the Rougarou doesn't have to take the form of a dogman. It when you start looking into the folklore, it could be anybody. It could be a person. But it's basically this curse that's put on a person or a thing, an animal, that causes them to be shifted into another form. And there's only a few ways to break this curse. Often it's by passing it on to someone else. Um,
Wow. What
but
differentiates that from a skinwalker? Because that sounds an awful lot like a skinwalker from Skinwalker Ranch.
It does. It does. Actually, actually, when we did the movie, we called it The Howl of the Rougarou, but distribution, our distribution partners at the time were like, listen, most people don't know what a Rougarou is. You need to have some other hook to the title to at least get people to watch. So they suggested that we call it Skinwalker Howl of the Rougarou.
Mhm.
And so it ended up being called Skinwalker Howl of the Rougarou. But and that came under a lot of fire too from some people because they're
Okay.
like, this isn't Navajo. What are you doing?
Mhm.
But it is at its core, some parts are very much the same as far as a curse being made through some sort of dark magic. Very particular people are the ones that can cause the curse and so on. It's just no, it's from a different culture. It's a mix of other cultures, and I'm not sure. Even going back, thinking of the different, there are, of course, Native American ties to that, but Navajo is not one of them that I can recall. Um, but yeah, I think it's just
What
a cultural difference, really.
what states is the Rougarou seen in mostly?
It's mostly in southern Louisiana.
Oh, okay. Louisiana. Wow.
Yeah, down in the bayous.
Okay. I mean, I think of you guys did an episode on this too just recently, the swamp monster there in Louisiana.
Oh,
Uh,
Honey
yeah,
Island swamp monster. Yeah.
the swamp monster. So kind of in that general region of the area,
Mm-hmm.
that's really
Yeah.
interesting. And I guess the important thing, I mean, you can just say, well, is it a dog man? Is it a werewolf? Is it a skinwalker? Is it this? I think the important bit of information that we should be focused on is that things can change into animals and show up in your bedrooms, or, you
Yeah.
know, and, and I mean, you mentioned the occult and magic, kind of these kind of things. That's terrifying. I mean, talk about a
Hmm.
scary, spooky thing for Halloween to think you can just be walking out and somebody can shapeshift into these things.
Yeah.
I mean, were they attacking people? Are they just quick sightings, or have they been known to be
Oh
aggressive?
no, no, they get aggressive. They definitely can get aggressive. Yeah, they're not something that you want to mess with in any way. I mean, it's just a typical,
Ooh,
I mean, this is where I kind of lean back on the whole dogman thing. Um, you don't really get good encounters with dogmen. You don't really get good encounters with the Rougarou either. Whether it's the person who saw the Rougarou and there was an interaction, or the person who's actually cursed themselves. Um, because there is a story of someone who was cursed, and their form of the curse when they were shape shifted is that they were turned into a tree.
oh,
Um, so there's really no way to communicate as a tree to even pass the curse off to someone. And they ended up, if I'm remembering correctly, they ended up coming back to their human form after the tree was starting to get cut down. But by that point, their body was already hurt, um, because they were the tree. So, it ended up poorly for them, not for the person who did the axing of the tree, but it ended up poorly for the person who was cursed and condemned. So, um,
wow. I mean,
but
that's
yeah, and
just
there's a
not
lot of
intense.
religious undertone too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that just the thought that somebody can put a curse on our souls, 'cause I
Mhm.
don't know about you guys out there, but me personally, I believe our souls are not tied to our physical bodies, and somebody can put a
Mhm.
curse on our soul and turn us into a tree, or a rock, a rocker
Yeah.
into an animal or something like that. You think about the missing people as that's what's going on. I've never really looked at it from that angle, but how terrifying
Mhm.
would that be, to be trapped, your soul to be trapped like that? Holy
Yeah.
smokes, that is really scary. And for some of these people that interact or have contact with these Rougarou, are there like ill effects to their lives? Do they get sick later, or do they have to be like, can they get rid of that, or is it kind of a one-off? I see this thing and I go on with my life and everything's fine and dandy, or is it like opening up to some other things that continue for these people that have interactions?
So what I recall is that you are not to speak about having an interaction with a Rougarou for a set amount of time. I have
Oh,
heard two versions of this. I've heard that it has to be a year and a day from the time you had your interaction with the Rougarou, that you can't say anything, otherwise you yourself become a Rougarou. Um,
oh,
or another one is like 101 days. It was like 100 days and one. But either way,
and
it's a long period of time. You're supposed to keep this to yourself, that you had this encounter with something, or that you even suspect that something might be a Rougarou. You're not to speak of it at all for quite some time. And then after that, you're free to kind of discuss it. But it's also one of those things where,
hmm,
there are people that are a little hesitant. And this is just Rougarou. This is with a lot of these creatures. People are hesitant to even really talk about it, for fear that they'll somehow like invoke in a way, or catch its attention when they don't want that attention brought upon them. So people don't really like to talk about them in general.
right. Do you think you have to believe in one for it to affect you, or to encounter one? I mean,
You know, I don't I don't know. This is something I've thought about for all kinds of things. Definitely, I mean, not just Rougarou. Um, I thought about it even as far as a religious aspect of things. Do you have to believe in something for it to affect you? And um, I'm not sure that you do. Um, because I would think that if something is powerful enough to have some sort of action or reaction, it doesn't really care if you believe in it or not. I think if you do believe in something, you're kind of maybe more predisposed to having things happen to you. And also easier, like quicker to think that it is something of what you believe in that's causing whatever outcome that may be. It's kind of
Right.
the like I did some research for a while into like cursed objects and letters that people write when they return cursed objects back to the location that they took it from. And you know, some of these letters, they're people that absolutely believed that if they took something, it might happen, and they did it just to test it. And then there were people that didn't believe in it at all, but they had heard the story, and so it was still like in the
Like,
back of their mind
right. They said,
that,
yeah.
yeah, right. So when stuff starts going awry, then, you know, we're looking for a reason why, and
Right.
you fall back on the things that you know as an explanation, because we're always looking for an explanation or a story to make things make sense. But yeah, I don't know if I mean, if there's stuff out there, and I think there is, that have powers that we don't understand. I don't think it care if you
You
believe in them
believe
or
it or
not.
not. No, it's a good
Yeah.
question though, because like I wonder about the power of belief and the power of manifestation. And we have placebo
Oh
pills,
yeah.
we take a medication, we believe it's going to
Sure.
cure us, and there it goes. So you're right. If they have those stories or the folklore in the back of their minds, especially in some of these hotspots and small town monsters, you've been all across. Have you ever been out of the country to film anything, or just in the United States?
We went to British Columbia once.
Cool.
That was the
Cool.
farthest we've gone.
That's cool. Well, you need to go more global because this is a worldwide
Oh, that'd be
phenomenon.
great.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely, as you know, is probably the places you've been, and I want to get into some of your favorite small town monster adventures. But certainly, there's hot spots, you know. And I want to ask you, why do you think there's hot spots? What do these places have in common that you've noticed through your work with small town monsters? And also, is it something that if you're in a hotspot or a well-known documented you know, place that has all of this folklore, does it feed itself? Talk about a monster, it's kind of a perpetual feed the beast to continue on
Mhm.
the experiences. So those are a couple questions there for you.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely something to, if you were in a known hotspot and people have been talking about it. A few things going on. One, it's already in your mind that you know, you're in a hotspot. So something that might be occurring, you might attribute that to the fact that you're in an active area. But also, there is something I believe in, the idea of thought forms and putting collective thought into something and that manifesting into something greater, or giving power to something, whether that's a ghost or spirit or cryptid or other type of entity. I think that those things can sort of, I don't know, feed off of our thoughts and our energy. As far as what creates a hotspot, I think that there are a few things going on. One, just on a very basic level, some of the hotspots that we know about, are only aware of them purely because someone wrote something about them, something was filmed there. It's not like, I mean, I think there's more hotspots than what we know about, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's
Yeah.
easy to say someplace like the Chestnut Ridge is a hot spot, but there's been so much done on that spot. You know, a place like Skinwalker Ranch, there's been a lot of attention there, but that's not what made it a hot spot. That just makes it known as a
Yeah.
hot spot.
Yeah. Agree.
So I think that when it comes to places that have this activity, I have started to wonder if there aren't far more places that we just haven't taken the time to check them out.
I
I
agree.
don't know how, yeah, I don't know how, and this might be a little odd to say. I don't know how many hot spots there are, or it's just that certain things have caught our attention and we focus on that particular location. Like I
Right.
don't, it's possible that there are hot spots all over the place. It's just nobody's there studying it.
Right. Have you noticed though with small town monsters that you guys tend to go to more rural areas than let's say big cities? Or do you notice that you go
Oh
to
yeah.
places with more water than less water, things like that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different things with the rural versus urban setting, and part of it I think is just the pace of life.
Mhm.
There may be something maybe something magical about New York City, you know, very odd about New York City in a cryptid sort of manner that we wouldn't even be aware of because it's just hustle bustle, look at our phones, get to work, you know, driving here and there. There's no
Don't
time to
mind the
stop
bird
and
walking
be.
behind us or the
Yeah.
dog man. It's just like everybody. That's
Right,
funny.
yeah. It's just there's so much happening, and I think
Right.
that that's and you know, it doesn't have to be a city as large as New York, of course, but
Yeah.
when you get out into the rural areas, people they're forced to kind of slow down. You're forced to look around you, to be more aware of the world outside of your door. Um,
Right.
and I think that that allows you to be more open to what is actually happening out there.
Good point.
Um, but we definitely, I mean, we went over to Chicago when we looked into the Chicago Mothman stuff. So people were stuff in more residential areas at that point in time. We recently went up to Monroe, Michigan, where there was the Monroe monster like resurgence of things. There was a sighting in 65 of a Bigfoot creature, but there was one recently, like May of this year as well. And Monroe, Michigan is a town. Like
Right.
there's railroad tracks and a waterway. The waterways are always there. That's always a common element is a waterway, if from what I've
Mm.
noticed. Um, but
Like lake
to
monsters. Do you have lake
to
monsters there too?
yeah,
I mean, Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes. Yeah.
they do. I know they do in Lake Erie because her name is Bessie, I believe. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, but the Monroe Monster, the new one. I mean, it was in Monroe, and Monroe is a city. There's no way like it's odd compared
Yeah.
to what we normally see. We were talking with other people up around Michigan when we were looking into put stuff there for our Heartland series, and people are discussing how in Detroit, like urbanized the edges of Detroit, there are starting to be sightings because they're coming in closer to cities, I guess. But so stuff does happen. Even in our Dawn of the Dogman movie, there is a it's not out yet, but there's a scene there where someone had a dogman encounter in a town, and not a small town either. And
Right.
that's just not what you normally think when it comes to these kinds of creatures. So
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. You would think, I mean, these sightings have been going on. Oh, let's see. I've read of cryptids on top of apartment buildings in New Jersey City, just across the Hudson River from, yeah, I was going to say that. Like you would think through the decades, as you have cryptids, maybe they're getting a little bit more curious, a little more brave, or things like that that are kind of coming in closer to our cities and our neighborhoods, plus urban sprawl. You know,
yeah.
towns are just kind of everything's spreading out. So we're kind of embarking on their territories more and more. So maybe they are
Hmm.
making themselves more known. That's really an interesting thing to think about. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. All right. So you guys, small town monsters, I want to bring up a couple images here that we can talk about. So this, first of all, I want to encourage everybody to check out their website because you guys have a lot of information on your website, books. You guys have a publishing company now, so definitely go. But you
Hmm.
have upcoming films that are in the making. This one in
Hmm.
particular here looks fascinating. Lost Contact. And what I love about
Hmm.
Small Town Monsters, you guys do cover the whole gamut of things. You know,
Hmm.
the whole trifecta. So you're perfect guest for the UFO paranormal and cryptids because you do go into the historical UFO cases. And I was privileged enough to work with you guys in Ohio. Here we are on UFOs
Yeah.
Revisited. I'm hoping that there'll be
Yes.
more of these in the future, but we'll see. But
Yeah.
what a cool thing this was. And Heather and I were both on this panel together with Ron Murphy, and there's just everybody. And what I loved
Yeah.
most is we all kind of came at the different topics of really historical UFO cases from different angles, from different perspectives. So I thought that was kind of a genius panel to put together like that. We kind of really covered the grounds. What was your favorite episode? I know what mine was on that one.
I am not sure. I mean, the Hopkinsville Goblins, I liked going over that. It was probably just because it's closer to the cryptid angle. I really enjoyed talking about that. But in general, I think what I came away from it was that I really want to be as prepared as you, Micah Hanks, when it comes to stuff like this, because you were sitting at the same table and you can look. I mean, there's some shots I think you can see the tables in front of us. And I have a bunch of notes in front of me, and Ron's got notes. Ron Murphy to my right has notes, and then rotated between Aaron Deese, who was the host, and Mark Madsky, and then Seth Breedlove. And that table had notes, of course. And then you guys have nothing on your table because you don't need it. You're just like, yeah, throw a case at us. We'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, no, I just counted on Micah Hanks. I would just like say my few, and I'd go, okay, Micah, go.
Yeah.
No, I think history is important, and Small Town Monster does a great job at really covering all the different paranormal genres, and I think that's really has kept your wheels going for a long time, and so many people really support and love the work that you guys do for that reason. So you mentioned Mark Matsky, and I know he's a pastor and a preacher, and I know you can't speak for him, but I find that that's kind of an interesting perspective, talking about having the different people coming from different perspectives. I often wondered how that impacts his beliefs in some of these different phenomena. What a nice guy he is.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite people. I will sit down and talk with him about all kinds of stuff, and I told him that there was something I came across. It was a type of denomination for Christianity that I was unfamiliar with, but I was like, listen, next time that we talk, I need you to explain this to me and break it down, because I'm not. And he was like, yeah, no problem. But he's a fountain of knowledge. It doesn't matter what the topic is. If we throw something at him, he delivers as far as what he can dig up and talk about. And it's just, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that was such a fun time. And again, I think the work, I'm going to just kind of flip through some of these pictures here. I don't know if you want to comment on any of these.
Well, the first one with just Courtney and I, that was when we were in Between the Lakes, filming for Dogman Territory with Shannon LeGros and Aaron Deese.
How often does it happen that you guys are out there filming? Because we all know these are tricky phenomenon to capture, whether it's UFOs, paranormal, or cryptids. They do not come when you call them. Like, come here, Bigfoot, come. So how often do you guys actually encounter something and get lucky when you're out there filming like that?
I mean, in that particular instance, it's pretty rare, because we are on an abbreviated timeline. There's some things that we have to get done just for storytelling purpose to keep everything kind of cohesive. And so we know, we need to interview this witness, or we need to go to this location. And even if we do something that's like a night ops type situation, there's still time limits just because of travel and so on. We can't spend weeks out in the field.
Right. Has anybody ever been like physically affected, like the radiation burn I got at the Rocky Mountain Ranch, or any ill health effects, or feeling, attacked in any way like you do on Paranormal Investigation sometimes?
Not that I'm aware of. I do know, which I was just told, that, and it's not my story to tell, so I don't even want to say who it was. But there was someone on the crew who had an experience fairly recently, apparently. Didn't really tell anybody about it, and I think it still bothers them that it even happened, because it was, you're out there to film these things, but you don't necessarily expect that you're going to run into it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
that's kind of goes with the
yeah,
job, a risk you take.
yeah. I mean, when we did a series here at the farm where I live called the Bigfoot Project, um, because there was activity here at the farm. And there were a couple nights for sure where Seth and I were out in the woods and we could hear things running around us. Something
Yeah.
was throwing things at us, those kind of things. And it was unsettling at the time. It was easier to deal with after the fact because that was in the woods. It wasn't like right outside my back door or anything like that.
Right.
So that was easier to to put in perspective. Yes. It was still something that we go out there hoping to document these things, but you don't, like you said, you can't. It's not like say cue the Bigfoot. It doesn't
Yeah.
really occur that way.
Right. What
But
about like
I
battery
think
drones and things like that? Do you guys ever have trouble with your
y-
equipments and microphones, things like that?
we have had issues with that before with battery drains. I don't know. I never know what to attribute it to because our stuff, like some of our batteries are very old anyway, but yeah, no, that's something that's happened on multiple shoots. I can't think of a particular instance, but the battery drains definitely happened. We've
Yeah.
had instances where I don't know, things were just kind of weird when stuff was uploaded in the edit, like the files were a little odd. We've had files just disappear, but nothing
Oh,
that's like derailed entire things, entire projects. So
wow.
thankfully.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that I think my very first time I met you guys years back, it was sort of like a shoot like this, where you went to somebody's home,
Mhm.
on the trails of
So
UFOs, I think it was. Yeah. And so
yeah,
and I love that you go and you seek out a lot of these eyewitnesses, and experiencers. So
mhm.
hats off to you for
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that picture was taken in British Columbia.
Okay.
It's Mark Matsky, uh,
Mhm.
and
You
then
hear.
Alex Petikoff is in the left corner with his back to us, and then to the right is a descendant of the Ruby Creek incident from British Columbia, where a Bigfoot had come up and interacted with a family. So that was Chapman Davis is the last name, but
Wow, what
yeah,
years was
that was
that?
a
Do you remember? So another Sasquatch interacting with a family. I love those accounts.
yeah. I cannot honestly recall the year that happened. That would have been, I don't know, it was probably the early 1900s if I'm remembering correctly. Um, but it was the Chapman family, so
Wow.
anybody can Google it and see when that
Yeah, I'll have
happened.
to
But
check out that one. Yeah. It's almost
yeah,
like
so that was cool.
Sasquatch, maybe they are curious about certain people or family members. One of my
Mhm,
favorite episodes that we did on UFOs Revisited was Men in Black, and it was something, Heather, that you mentioned and you talked about on that episode, which is what about women in black? What about female encounters? And certainly with cryptids and Sasquatch or Bigfoot encounters, you hear that sometimes they are attracted or they'll watch females. Have you heard of this as well on some of your adventures like that you have ran
yeah.
into?
The first thing that comes to mind are the stories that I've heard of Bigfoot mimicking the sound of babies or infants crying in the woods when they know
Interesting.
that a female is present. Like Alexander Petikoff goes to this place that they call Area A off the southern coast of Alaska. Well, not really southern, but off of the coast of Alaska. And they have noticed that of all the sounds and the chaos that has erupted around that cabin, it's only when women are present that there are the babies crying sounds coming from the woods.
Hmm. And what makes
Um,
them think it's Sasquatch or Bigfoot and not like a ghost or a paranormal cry? Can you
well,
smell them?
I'm guessing it's based on just the accumulation of everything else that's happened between the wood knocks and the other vocalizations of 1941. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, but vocalizations, they've had some stuff come up and like hit the house. They found handprints. I believe they found footprints. So I think it's just an accumulation of all of these
Right.
factors together that they're just assigning to Bigfoot. But
yeah,
so that's one that I've heard for sure. Of course, there's always the theory that Bigfoot are more intrigued by children in general. It's something that piques their interest. And at least here on the farm, that seems to be when we had the most active evening, was when our children were out at the one cabin in the back, and they'd been out playing and stuff. That evening that we had the most activity. So
that would make sense to me. And we hear that too, like up in Bailey. I'm not too far away from I think you've been there actually, the Bigfoot Museum in Bailey, Colorado.
Yes.
And in that area in Bailey and Conifer up here in the Rocky Mountains, there's Girl Scout camps, and I know there's been some pretty good significant sightings of Bigfoot around Girl Scout camps or singing. Have you guys ever tried anything like that to kind of lure in and amp up the activity of like baiting or singing or playing musical instruments or any? Lately I've been finding YouTube videos of people playing accordions and orchestras to the cows, and the cows now maybe they're CGI and they're not real, but I'm like, okay, I must be bored and watching cows listening to music. But have you guys tried that with Bigfoot?
Yeah, we've tried different call blasts of various things. I know when Seth was here, we kind of, we still tease him about this, but there was one evening when we were back at the cabin and he decided, I can't remember if this was his own thought or if somebody had suggested it, but either way, he played like monks chanting.
I thought you were going to say Zeppelin.
That out. No, but I have talked with people who that's what they do, play things like Zeppelin or AC/DC, things like just the regular listening that they have. And that is enough to kick up activity because we're just doing what we normally do. But I've heard people fairly recently that had told us to not play the sound of an injured rabbit because in where they live, that causes things to get really aggressive for some reason. And I don't know if it's because they feel like, oh, dinner's right there, and then it turns out there is no animal that's injured and they're upset. I don't know what is with that, but I've heard, distress animal calls.
It would be like an appetizer for a Bigfoot. A rabbit? They're pretty small.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
You are teasing me. I want my appetizer. Okay, I'm sorry. That's not funny.
No, you're fine. We've done that. We've done the different calls. I've played the Ohio howl, which is a more famous howl that was recorded in Columbiana County, Ohio in 1994 by Matt Moneymaker. So I played that all over, but especially around here, and have gotten responses from that.
Yeah, it would make sense that making other known calls, or maybe they're not known per se, but suspected calls of Sasquatch, it would make complete sense that would attract others to be curious. And in fact, I've been trying to befriend. We have a pair of ravens that live here in our area, and I hear ravens are really intelligent. Like you can hide toys, and so we build a raven roost. And I've been taking the calls of ravens and putting it up for that same reason, going, okay, somebody's in your territory, because they're very territorial. And if Bigfoot are territorial too, and they think there's another family of Sasquatch, you're gonna like maybe get some great like get out of my yard kind of thing. So
and that's the other point that people brought up, that point too, of you do these call blasts, but you don't know what you're blasting. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what that howl means.
Calls. Could be mating. I'm holding it up for there's a mating call.
Right, exactly. We don't know what we're doing.
My face. And with the squirrels, I've been filming these little squirrels, and one's clearly a new mother, and like she'll be like this, and the tail's going like this. I'm like, she's gonna jump on my face any moment. But no, I think that's a good idea, and I'm sure these things have been tried, before. But gosh, how cool would it be if we could get like a CE5 protocol for Sasquatch?
Yeah, that would be
small town monsters.
I mean,
thing.
Yeah, it would be something. I mean, it's something that I heard for even with going out paranormal investigating, playing different types of songs and music and things to kind of elicit a reaction. I
Right.
think that's
Sense.
it's
Well, the
intriguing. I've
time
also thought if they're not familiar with whatever sound you're playing, that might bring them in anyway, just out of curiosity.
yeah, that's
I
true
don't
too.
know.
That's true. It's a good point. We're down to the last 10 minutes. This time has flown by. And since it is Halloween, we can't let your books go without recognition. So you have 3 of these in the series. And can you talk about what these are in the short stories and maybe touch on a favorite story or two, as we go along here?
Yeah. So the Feminine Macabre is a journal that was created by Amanda Woomer, or she goes by Spookeats on social media. But she came up with this idea that it was time to give more of a platform to female voices
Mm.
in the paranormal field. And so put out a call for people to submit articles, essays, short stories. Well, not really short stories, but articles and essays. For this journal, The Feminine Macabre, and I submitted and got accepted into the first, the third, the fifth, and now the seventh just came out this year.
Oh, wow.
Each of them have a different topic. But the first one that came out was about the cursed objects and the letters that accompany them from the Bell Witch Cave specifically. So that's the Bell Witch centered one. The third one would have been Headless Ghosts. I tracked
I'm not sure.
down
Is
some
this the cover
stories.
for the third one right here that I put up?
Yeah,
For
that
somebody.
that one is the fifth one, I
Oh, this
think.
is the fifth one. Okay.
Um, yeah, but in the third one, it was Headless Ghosts and tracking down who they were in life, based off of newspaper articles and genealogical records. And then the fifth one, that one there is a goat man connection, about how Goatman has kind of always been around in one form or another throughout most of my life. And then the second one that just came out was my mind total. Oh, this second one just came out was about Joan Jeffers, who was a researcher out of Pennsylvania that is often forgotten. She worked with Stan Gordon, among others. PA research in the 70s through the 90s. She's no longer with us, but she often gets overlooked. And so I wanted her to have a place to be remembered a little more than just a passing footnote. So,
Oh, that's a really, really awesome thing to do. And I think you're right. I mean, I don't often like playing the female card in this field, but
yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
obvious. There's few and far. We are few and far between. There needs to be much more of us out there. So I love that you're giving a platform for females to do that. So that is fantastic. I want to also, there you guys are somewhere cold.
Yeah, that's Alaska.
Oh, cool. All right. And Alaska is a whole other show, I think, all on itself.
Yeah.
But definitely check out Small Town Monsters website. Also their YouTube channel right here, Small Town Monsters. I think there's over 1,000 videos on there. A lot of shorts.
Yeah.
Your live podcast. Talk about your podcast a little bit. I know that you have a podcast too, Heather.
Yes, I do. It's been on hiatus for a little bit, but it's called The Lore You Know. And I chat with people from all over the field that are storytellers, historians, folklorists, just basically people who, they're collecting stories, they're adding stuff to the history of the field and kind of reviving older folklore and things like that. So that's what literally just an interview show. So if you're looking for something super snazzy, that's not it. It's an interview show, but that's mine. I'm also the co-host with 3 because it's Seth, Mark, and myself, co-host of a show called Monsteropolis.
Oh, cool.
Also on hiatus. All podcasts are on hiatus at the moment because we've been inundated with YouTube and movie making. But Monsteropolis, we talk about all kinds of weird stuff. And
But you could
It's
go
just
back and see past shows and get all that
yeah,
content caught up.
all of
but
that's
then
out
you guys
there
get back
on
on there and do your
platforms.
new episode. Yeah.
Yep,
So
exactly.
right. So we have about 6 minutes left, 5 minutes left. Heather, what
Yeah.
what message would you like to give our listeners out there for people tuning in that are interested in any of these topics, the trifecta of topics? What is your advice?
Okay. My that's a tough one. That's a deep question actually. So there's layers to this advice. One is to, if you're interested in it, look into it and don't be afraid to do so. It doesn't matter what anybody else around you thinks of it. If it's something that ignites a passion in you for it, right? You could become the expert in that part of the field for all you know. Either way, even if you don't, learn from us that have already done the research. So just expand your knowledge base. The other would be to not hoard your knowledge and refuse to share with other people if your ultimate goal is to kind of solve some of these mysteries or find some type of thread that unites all of them. I mean, if you want to hoard your stuff, that's fine, but it's not going to really solve anything along.
That I think let's pause right there just for 1 second. I
Yeah.
don't want to interrupt you, but I couldn't agree with you more. And just recently, I'm not going to name the name, but there was a person who passed away that did exactly that for many, many years, if not decades, did not share information, did not bring things forward. I do not know what the reason was for that, but now, and maybe part of it too is we're inundated with fake videos and things. So even as
Yeah.
fantastic as some of this stuff is that is real and coming from old negatives in film, nobody cares. So I don't know. I don't know. What do you think it is that keeps people from doing that or hoarding their information? Why do you think people want to do that in the first place? I just can't understand that.
Yeah. The only thing I can figure is it wants to, people that have an ego, is the only thing that I can figure. They want to be the ones that have the most knowledge in whatever topic. It's their topic. They kind of want to own it. But again, then my question is, what's your ultimate goal in this? If it is to be the best and that's how you see it, then okay. But if your goal is to, figure something out, that's going to require some help from other people, whether you want it to or not. You're not going to single-handedly solve this mystery that's been going on for who knows how long.
Yeah. So true.
I would also encourage people to not fall into the drama that pervades every community. If you can avoid it, do so at all costs. And I know that one's hard because, people, it's something that we, as documentarians, our goal is to tell the story, preserve the story, not take sides.
Yeah.
But often what ends up happening is, depending on who you're wanting to talk to, if they have an issue with someone else, they could be like the two best people in the field, but they don't like each other. And
Yeah.
so, and somebody has demands like, well, I won't be in the same film as them. Like, you got to choose them or me, kind of thing. And that's not what we're about. Is that not holding stake in whose side? We're just trying to tell the story for what it is. You're both
Right.
pieces to the story thing.
Yeah, no, that's such a great
yeah.
one. And everybody just wants to kind of get in there and have their opinion of the story of the day or the flavor of the week. And then you get in that infighting and the drama of it all, and these platforms and these rooms and these groups you can get into. They get kind of, and it's hard because we're faced with having to put ourselves out there on one hand, but at the same time trying to stay out and indifferent. And I think that's perfect how you said it. You're out there just trying to give information, telling the story, not getting involved in that. And I think that's fantastic advice. One minute left to give your last bit of good advice. This is all really great advice. I love all of this.
The last bit of advice would be, it's okay to take constructive criticism, but ignore the trolls.
Yeah, good one too.
Because there are way too many of them, and it's something that unfortunately we see a lot because of what we do. I don't know how many authors that don't have a public facing platform necessarily have to deal with this, other arenas, but once you get out there and your face is out there, you put stuff on YouTube or social media, you've opened yourself up to all kinds of attacks.
I don't have to do this.
Yeah, and you just got to know when to be like, oh, that's actually a good point, versus they're just mean because they're faceless behind a computer.
Yeah.
So
really good
keep that in
advice.
mind.
I love all of that, and I couldn't agree with you more on all those points. Heather, thank you so much for being here, and happy Halloween to you. Enjoy this
Happy Halloween.
scary holiday. I'm gonna go watch the 12 Ghosts, right? Is that what it is? 12 Ghosts?
13 Ghosts. 13 Ghosts.
It should be 13. I'm gonna go watch 13 Ghosts. Thank you for being here.
13
Happy
Ghosts.
Halloween, everybody, and we will see you next Wednesday night on the Trifecta. Have a good night, everybody.